Strange New Worlds can answer one of William Shatner's biggest Star Trek movie mysteries. When Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country rolled credits in 1991, it marked the swan song for the original crew of the USS Enterprise. For many fans, it was a fitting end to the journeys of Captain Kirk, Spock, and the rest of the iconic bridge crew. Yet, William Shatner's Captain James T. Kirk had one more cinematic adventure ahead of him, one that would raise more questions than it answered. Star Trek Generations 1994 gave Kirk a heroic, if controversial, death, but also introduced a baffling mystery that's never been fully resolved. How exactly did Kirk spend his time in the Nexus, and what did he see that made him choose to leave it behind? Now, over 30 years later, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds may be in the perfect position to finally provide answers to this long-standing enigma. The Nexus, Star Trek's most puzzling plot device. The Nexus was introduced in Generations as an extra-dimensional phenomenon, a ribbon of pure energy that, upon contact, would pull individuals into a timeless realm where their deepest desires were fulfilled. Within the Nexus, time has no meaning. One's fantasies become tangible. And most perplexingly, the Nexus allows one to leave and re-enter time and space at any moment of one's choosing. When Kirk enters the Nexus, we're given only a glimpse of his experience. A rustic cabin in the woods, an idealized vision of domestic life where he's chopping wood and preparing for a quiet evening. But the brief scene hints at something deeper. Kirk quickly realizes it's an illusion, a construct of what he thinks he wants. He's told by Guinan, or rather an echo of her, that the Nexus offers the ability to go anywhere, to any time. That idea alone opens a massive can of narrative worms. Why didn't Kirk choose to go back and stop his younger self from dying in the first place? Why didn't he choose to go back to a time he was happiest, say, aboard the Enterprise in his prime? What was he doing for the decades he was presumed dead inside the Nexus? These questions have haunted fans and William Shatner himself for decades. William Shatner's own take on the mystery. In his novels like The Return and the Captain's Blood series, co-written with Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, Shatner explores alternate ideas of Kirk's fate after Generations. These stories are not canon, but they reflect Shatner's own dissatisfaction with how his character's story concluded. Shatner has expressed interest in returning to the Star Trek universe, even jokingly pitching ideas to revisit Kirk through science fiction loopholes like clones, alternate timelines, or even Nexus-related plot devices. His continued interest points to an unresolved narrative itch, one that Strange New Worlds might now be able to scratch. Strange New Worlds, Trek's new storytelling frontier. Strange New Worlds has quickly become a fan-favorite Star Trek series, lauded for its episodic storytelling, character development, and balance between nostalgia and innovation. Set roughly a decade before the original Star Trek, it focuses on Captain Christopher Pike and the crew of the Enterprise before Kirk takes command. What makes Strange New Worlds the perfect vehicle to address the Nexus mystery is its growing comfort with bending reality. Episodes like Those Old Scientists, a crossover with Lower Decks, and the musical Subspace Rhapsody have proven the series isn't afraid to experiment with genre, tone, or even metaphysics. This creates fertile ground for an exploration of a realm like the Nexus, a place where space, time, and imagination are irrelevant. How Strange New Worlds could revisit the Nexus. So how could Strange New Worlds touch this long-dormant mystery without breaking canon or relying on convoluted cameos? There are several elegant possibilities. 1. A Nexus incursion. The Enterprise under Pike might encounter a rare temporal anomaly, perhaps a sliver of the Nexus ribbon passing through a distant star system. This encounter could expose the crew or a specific character to visions or echoes from those within the Nexus. In this scenario, Kirk's consciousness, or even a past version of him, could appear briefly, not as a resurrected character, but as a projection or memory. Imagine Spock, Ethan Peck, or Uhura experiencing a glimpse of Kirk's Nexus existence, giving them, and the audience, fragments of insight into what Kirk truly valued in life. 2. The return of Guinan or her echo. Guinan, famously played by Whoopi Goldberg, is an Elorian, a species with a mysterious awareness of timelines and temporal anomalies. Her echo exists within the Nexus, as we saw in Generations. Strange New Worlds could reintroduce Guinan either via Goldberg or a younger recast actor as someone investigating temporal distortions caused by the Nexus's recent movement through the galaxy. She might warn Pike that the Nexus is a cosmic wildcard, offering brief but potent glimpses into what could have been. Through Guinan, the show could relay details of Kirk's time in the Nexus, respecting the original films while expanding upon their mysteries. 3. A Kirk prototype episode. Imagine a what-if style narrative, a dream, simulation, or quantum echo, where Pike encounters a version of Kirk, perhaps even portrayed by Paul Wesley or a CGI-assisted Shatner living out his life in the Nexus. In this surreal episode, Pike might witness various alternate realities Kirk is experiencing, being married to Edith Keeler, commanding the Enterprise forever, or never joining Starfleet at all. These vignettes could offer profound insight into who Kirk is, while still keeping the events contained within a speculative, metaphysical framework. A deeper look into Kirk's psychology. Beyond nostalgia, revisiting Kirk's Nexus experience could be used to explore the emotional and psychological core of the character. Strange New Worlds excels at deconstructing its heroes, especially Captain Pike, who grapples with his foreknowledge of his tragic fate. A Kirk-focused episode could parallel this, showing that even someone as bold and brash as Kirk was haunted by regrets, longings, and paths not taken. We might finally learn why Kirk walked away from the Nexus. Perhaps the cabin in the woods wasn't enough. Perhaps he longed for the bridge of the Enterprise, but found that even that was hollow without real stakes or real companions. Perhaps his truest desire, adventure, challenge, purpose, could only exist outside the illusion, no matter how beautiful it was. This would reframe Kirk's exit from the Nexus not just as a convenient plot point, but as a moment of existential clarity. He chose reality over fantasy, duty over comfort, action over rest. Why now? There's a poetic symmetry to Strange New Worlds revisiting Kirk's Nexus mystery now. In universe, the show is brushing up against the timeline of Kirk's command. Out of universe, Star Trek is more willing than ever to tackle long-standing canon questions in thoughtful, nuanced ways, as seen in Picard, Lower Decks, and even Prodigy. Additionally, with Paul Wesley's Kirk being gradually introduced in Strange New Worlds, there's a unique opportunity to weave both the classic and the newer versions of the character into a shared thematic arc. Wesley could portray a Nexus-born version of Kirk, an Echo struggling with his desires, fears, and legacy, allowing the show to explore what makes a man like Kirk walk away from paradise to face death, twice. The fans deserve a resolution. Kirk's death in Generations remains one of the most contrived,